The presenting sponsor of Upmarket is Aereo, the best place to grow and manage your real estate media business online at aereo.com. That's ARYEO.com. Coming to you from the Upmarket studio at Gasworks in beautiful San Buenaventura, California, this is Upmarket, a podcast about the business of real estate photography and media. My name is Reed Fish. I'm the CEO and a co-founder of Upmarket Media. And my goodness, sad to say, we're doing a little evening, this is a little Friday evening thing. And I think Mark has, sad to say, Friday evening twilight. So he is not here. And even Chelsea, we've given her the evening off. So producer Chelsea producing from afar. So it is... Well, it's not just me, actually. We do have a very, very special guest for the show today because we are coming into tax season, so it is always on our mind. And I want to tell you, do not think that this is, well, maybe it'll be a dry episode. I don't think it will. But this is actually a really, really, really important episode of our podcast. And I really hope that you listen, even if the subject matter at the beginning is not so enticing to you. But we have one of the more wonderful people I know and one of the businesses actually that I admire and one of our actual vendors at Upmarket Media. We have here Juliana Ramirez, who is the owner, one of the owners of JR Bookkeeping in Ventura, California, and who is in fact our bookkeeper. And Juliana, the first thing I want to know, I think I know, but what do our listeners need to know? Why is it so important to have a bookkeeper if we want our business to thrive?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me.
Well, you are welcome.
It's an honor to be here. And I'm just so grateful, for the opportunity to be here.
Great.
So thank you. Well, there are three types of accounting professionals that you should think about.
Okay, all right. I think about accounting professionals all the time.
Bookkeepers, accountants, and tax accountants.
I got it.
And it's important that you know the difference because then you'll know, why is it important to have a bookkeeper versus an accountant versus a tax accountant.
Because I always thought a bookkeeper was basically, it was all the same thing.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I know. I know that now. Now that I'm a big, important CEO, I know some things.
And so a bookkeeper is the one that organizes all your information, makes the data entry into your accounting system, and reconciles your accounts. That means making sure that everything's accounted for, that you haven't missed anything, and that you also produce financial statements. That's what a bookkeeper does.
Okay.
An accountant is the one that takes the information that the bookkeeper has compiled and organized and prepared and analyzes the numbers, so that you can use them for something. They can be used for tax preparation. They can be used so that you can see the performance of your business. They can be used for your financial position. Right. And so the accountant verifies what the bookkeeper has done and interprets them and analyzes them.
Okay, yeah.
And the tax accountant is the one that will take what the accountant already verified and will prepare your tax return. So we'll keep you compliant. They will put their signature so that they can,
They're
verify.
They're vouching.
Yes.
Okay, but we see at Upmarket, I think we only have two of those. I mean, we have our CPA, our tax accountant, which I think is also our regular accountant.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
are those the same people sometimes?
So as a matter of fact, you actually, with us, you have a combination of bookkeeper and accountant.
Oh, okay.
Because as a bookkeeper, we get all the books in order, right? But as an accountant, if we meet on a regular basis.
Yes, we do,
to go over how you're doing.
Oh, that's the accounting part.
That's the accounting part.
Well, so I want to so we are longtime clients of JR Bookkeeping. And so it is, they keep our books in order, but then once a quarter, Juliana gets on a call with Mark and I and goes over what our financial statements are looking like. And what I really appreciate about Juliana is she has a different way of looking at the numbers than I do because I don't really know how to interpret them. And probably most of us don't if we don't have that accounting background. And it's been really helpful for our business. And like in this last year, those sessions were really fun. The previous year, it was like, can we not do this today?
Totally. And that's why it's so important to understand what a bookkeeper is going to do versus what an accountant will do. Okay. So oftentimes you'll see like a bookkeeper and accountant, right? Which is what we are.
Yeah.
Or an accountant and tax accountant. So not all bookkeepers do taxes and not all tax preparers or tax accountants do bookkeeping. So
Right.
that's very important to know. So it is a very special area of expertise. It's kind of like a fractional CFO.
Okay.
That's how a lot of people know what an accountant is. Again, interpreting the numbers, making sure that you understand, making sure that you do something with the numbers
Right.
that we are preparing.
Well, right. Okay. So I think that leads me to the big question, and what I think hopefully our audience can really start thinking about for themselves is, I know you are big on setting goals, right? And we're all, and the whole point of you being, a vendor for our business or any business is like, you're there to help us thrive, right? That is your sole reason for being. And what are the elements that you think any business, and especially, and you're familiar with our real estate media business, what do we need to do when we're thinking about our numbers and in how we're going to be able to thrive and have goals?
Yeah, I mean, I look at the numbers in a very different approach than most bookkeepers will do. Generally bookkeepers, again, their goal is to keep you organized.
Right.
But I take it a little bit further because as a business owner myself,
Right.
I understand the importance of hitting those goals or creating objectives to meet those goals for my business. And likewise, I do that for our clients, right? I want to make sure that when I learn what the clients or what our clients are aiming for, that the numbers can support those, those objectives.
Right.
And so, again, one of the main things that I focus is making sure that I understand what are your goals, what are you trying to accomplish here, and with that in mind, then I make sure that whatever we're doing on a regular basis, again, is going to support your doing, right? So if you tell me we need new equipment, right? Because we are trying to build a studio.
Yeah.
Well, is there enough cash flow for that? Is there debt, or would you have to get in debt? Is there enough income for that? I mean, there's so much that goes into what that end result or that end goal is.
Right. Which we did not consult with you even for 1 second before we got the studio.
No, but one of the things that I remember from that time is the fact that you knew the numbers.
Right.
Because I was forcing you.
Right. Yes.
Right. To look at them.
We were paying you to force us to look at them.
Yes. And that's I often say, like, I kindly force our clients to meet with us so that they can do something with the numbers we present them. Like, our work needs to be meaningful.
Right.
Just like your work is meaningful for your clients.
Well, that's to have any sort of happy life, right?
Correct.
It's like you want your work to be meaningful.
Right. And so for us, it's like the numbers. So again, you have goals, and the numbers need to support those goals.
Right.
And that's the approach that we take.
Yeah.
Do you have the money to be able to support that, again, those actions?
Right.
And if you don't, what do you need to do to make that happen? So maybe there is a loan that you need to be able to, again, invest in equipment or to, hire that next employee or your first employee.
Right.
Whatever it may be, it is important that you know what that is, what are the steps to get there, and where are you at? So I usually take the approach of where are you at, what needs to be done, and how do you get there?
Right.
That's really why it's so important to have, again, the goals in mind.
Right. Well, and I think, that importance of being able to go over the numbers with someone who also, knows what they mean and can guide you in that. There's also, in those numbers, there can be warning signs. Right. Like if you like all of a sudden your expenses are way up, or like, and it seems in a way, like, I know when I was always thinking about people who had businesses before I had one, like, oh, it must be so obvious. It must be so obvious. But then as our business has grown and there's just, there's a lot of money coming in, a lot of money going out, it's really hard to know actually if you're profitable. Right. I mean, you can run the profit and loss, but then I don't know. It's more complicated than just like looking at the profit and loss.
And right now, I'm so glad.
Big number.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because there are two important reports that every business owner should look at and get super familiar with.
Okay.
That
Lay
is
it on me.
The balance sheet and the profit and loss.
Yeah.
I always look first at the balance sheet.
Okay. I never look at that.
Well, you do when we're together, you do.
Right.
So the balance sheet is the report that is going to give us your financial position.
Right.
That is where you're going to see your assets, which means what you own.
Right. Oh. Very little.
What you own own is the cash in the bank, your accounts receivable, that means the clients that owe you, and your and any equipment, right? Anything of value that you can convert into cash. Even if it's little cash, right? So that's your assets.
Yeah. How much is my soul? Because that's the
well, not yet, because then when you get to the equity section, then that is going to be where your net worth is.
Okay, all right.
So then there is the liability section, which is what you owe.
Right.
This is your credit cards, any loans. So if you're leasing an auto, like on, any
and we have an
type of
SBA loan that I know we have to pay back.
Correct. So that's obviously a liability. So on your balance sheet, you're going to see how much you owe.
Right.
And then there's your equity section, which is what your net worth is. So that's like you said, your soul, right?
Yeah, my soul. Yes, yeah.
Your assets minus your liabilities give us your net worth.
Right.
So if at any given point you want to know where you stand financially, you're going to need to look at what do I own? Again, your assets.
Right.
What do I owe? Which is my liabilities, and what is my net worth? If I had to close my business today or sell it, or if I wanted to bring an investor, what is my business worth right now?
Right. Well, and I think with real estate media businesses in particular, we don't have a lot of assets, right? It's typically we don't own a storefront. We don't own, we own equipment, but in the realm of a business, I mean, it's not that. I mean, what do we have? We probably have $30,000 worth of equipment or something, and which is great. I mean, it's $30,000 worth of equipment, but in the scope of how much money we generate a year, it's not that much.
Right. And then there's accounts receivable, which if you are not collecting that up front.
Right. Well, that was one of the biggest things. And I think Juliana, like you, and I would say you were never carping at us, but you were always like, I would just like to point out that you have $20,000 in your accounts receivable, and you realize that's basically a loan that you're giving to your clients. And wouldn't you rather have that $20,000 in your bank right now? Yeah. And we're like, well, yeah, because we only have $6,000 in our bank, so I would much rather have $26,000.
And this is where it comes to how that accounts receivable, or how that financial report, that balance sheet, how that relates to the profit and loss. Because you may see the profit on your profit and loss, but you may not see the money in your bank.
Yes.
And so it is important to understand how all of that, how those two work.
Yeah.
So on your profit and loss, you're going to see how much money I've brought in, how much money I've spent, and what the leftover is. But if the leftover does not equal the amount that you have in the bank, then you need to understand the balance sheet so you know where the money is. Right. So in this case, accounts receivable, you may have that income on your P&L, but if it's not collected, then you actually don't have that income. Right. Or what if you make an investment and equipment? Yeah, you were able to buy that investment, or that equipment because you had profit. Right. So it's really, again, understanding those two financial reports that is so key to any business.
I feel like we should have a line item for alcohol, because I feel like we spend a lot on that for this podcast.
Well,
we're drinking some wine. Yeah, cheers. Yes,
speaking of that.
Well, come on, it is happy hour on Friday when we're recording. So, who am I kidding? If it was 10 a.m., we'd still be drinking. Well, and I do think that really, once you kind of prodded us to move to a system where we were having our clients pay to download their photos. So they didn't have to pay when they book. They didn't have to pay when we do the shoot. But once we deliver, then for them to actually be able to download the media, they would have to pay. That, I don't want to say it transformed our business, but it just put us in such a better position. And it also released so much not anxiety, but like busy work and like having to think about these accounts receivable, because invariably most of our clients were great. They would pay the same day or they'd pay within a couple days and it was no problem. But then there's always those ones that don't. And then it's like, it just becomes a thing that someone in your company, whether it's your CFO or in our case, it was me who would have to be in there and be like, sending them emails all the time and having to think about it. It's just like, it's something that then I have to think about. And now I just get to look at how much credit card transactions we had today and when it's going to hit our bank account. And it's great. I don't have to worry about the accounts receivable. I mean, occasionally still there's some people who just like don't download the photos and it's 2 weeks later and you're like, oh, well, let's follow up with this person. But I mean, it's so minor. You know, we went from having sometimes $25,000 in accounts receivable to now having, you know, maybe 500 at, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And again, we wouldn't have been able to identify that you needed to change the way that you collected funds if we weren't looking at the numbers the way that we were. And that's the point. That's really, again, when you have, you know, a goal in mind, right?
Right.
Then you create what are those objectives, right? Like what are the steps that are going to get you to that goal, and identify what are the changes that you can make. So in your case, there was, can you collect, you know, to download the photos versus giving them the photos and then wait until they can or want or remember that they have to pay you. I mean, it's kind of like that simple, even though, like you already mentioned, it's not simple, but it
is. Well, I do think there was always, and maybe a lot of people in our industry as they start, and they're these solo entrepreneurs, they're photographers, they're not necessarily used to being business people, that it can be a little bit like, oh, if I demand that they pay, they're going to find that offensive or something, you know, that it should be, oh, I need to deliver it and then they'll pay later. It's like, you know, like, I don't know, at a restaurant or something. And I think there is a little bit of putting your self-worth into it and saying, no, I deserve it. I did the work. I mean, they're going to pay. Why not just have them do it now? And I think ultimately the clients appreciate it more too, because then it's done. They don't have to think about it ever again.
Yeah.
And because, and we'll get to that in an ad later, but it's all integrated where we deliver is also where they can pay. They can do the same email, the same place. Then it just makes it so much easier.
Yeah. And it improves your process, right? Like, again, it's just having a system, following that, and then it's done.
Yeah. Okay. So, but when you're setting, so like when you want us to set goals, I mean, what are the, like, do you, like, it's really concrete financial goals, right? Like I want to increase my profit by 20%, or I want to increase my gross by 30%, or is it, can we have, and maybe this is a weird question, but can we have more philosophical goals of like, I want to be, you know, I guess when I think about goals of our business, I try not to think about it in terms of like the raw number, but just in terms of like, how are we able to, you know, make our lives better, right? How are we able to, you know,
So that's why I always mention goals versus objectives, right? Because the goal is like, what is the goal for your business? Why do you exist? Why does your business exist? There's a reason that you're in business, right? It may be that you want to be the leading, you know, media marketing company within your city, within your county, within your state, within a particular sector. Like it may be that. It may be, you know, I want financial freedom by X date. It may be, you know, I am passionate about, you know, making clients shine, and I want my clients to, you know, I want to provide that for my clients. I mean, the sky's the limit. So that in that philosophical, right? It's like, what is your goal? Like there's a reason that you exist, and what is your vision? And then from that vision, how do you create your mission? What is your mission as to, you know, why do you get up every day and do what you do? Right? And then from there is like, you set goals. And in this case, what are the goals? Doesn't always have to be financial.
Right.
It could be many other things, but your numbers are going to drive.
Yeah, of course. Well, you know, and I think one of our current goals is to have Mark not out there shooting as much. And so therefore, if he's not out shooting as much, then we're going to have to pay someone to be there. Yeah. And so then our costs for our employee costs are going to go up. So that is part of it. We have to look at those numbers and say, well, can we actually afford that? Yeah. Can we afford for Mark not to work?
And here's where you then would look at your costs and say, like, is the cost versus the price, right? Because one thing is how much it's costing you to operate your business, right? Even if you're the one doing it, versus what your price is. That means what is your customer willing to pay for the work that you're doing for them, right? And it really drives, again, or opens up like an array of things to consider when you're trying to, again, gain that freedom, right? In this case, Mark, to then bring in an employee that will take care of that aspect, right? And make sure that you are marking it up correctly. And that you are also identifying your ideal client. And as you know, your ideal client is that client that is going to be willing to pay for your service.
Right.
right?
And not be
find
an
the
asshole.
value.
Yeah. And yeah, well, and not be, not be a handful, right? Okay. Can we, and we'll take a break here in a moment, but I do want to get into is when we're looking at numbers, are there actual outside of like the number, the dollar amount of what of how much money you're bringing in, like, are there some key benchmarks that you look for in a successful business, like in terms of, your profitability, I don't know. I mean, what do you look for?
Yeah. So there's a few things.
Okay.
First and foremost, if you are working for yourself, that means that you're probably looking to make enough to make a living.
Yeah.
So that's the first benchmark, right?
Right?
That you at least make enough to cover your expenses. So that benchmark is the very first one.
Right.
So how much do you need to live? Right? That means to pay your necessities. That's the very first benchmark. If you're making below that, then that something's off, and or you need to look at those numbers closely to see how you're going to get to that first goal of making at least what you need. So that's the very first benchmark that I look for. So I don't know if you remember, but I always like looking at the profit and loss by percentage of income.
Yes. Percentage of income.
Percentage of income where I put, it's like our total profit and loss. And then we say for every $100 that is coming into the business, this is how much is going towards each of the expenses. You remember that?
Yes,
report?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's eye-opening.
Wasn't that eye-opening? Because then you're like, okay, for every $100 that's coming in, I'm making $15. That means I have to work how many hours or how many times for those $15, right?
Right.
So, or let's say that it's $20 or whatever. So again, that's why I always look at what is the bottom line that you should be bringing in, especially if this is your only source of income, and if you are depending on this business to live and to pay for your expenses.
Right.
So that's the very first one. The second is, where are my costs? Like, am I making, what kind of profit am I making on on that?
And you can break it down by each service you're doing, or
Correct. And I usually, obviously every business is different. So in your case, it's what is your industry standard? What is the cost of services in your case, right? So looking at what is that? Usually for a service industry business where there's no quote unquote product or manufacturing of product, that would be anywhere between 40 to 60%.
Okay.
Meaning of profit. So that the cost would be more like a 30 to 40 at the most when you are in a service industry. Okay.
So if we're bringing in $100, we want to make sure that we're not spending more than $40 to bring in that $100.
Right, because then don't you want to make like $60 for every 100 that you're making? You probably want to make 100.
Yeah, of
but
course,
what I'm saying is, that should drive. Now, of course, if you want to, the more you want to make, the less cost that's got to,
Right. Well, you either have to sell more or lower your costs.
Correct.
Right? Or raise your prices or whatever.
Correct.
Right. And okay, well that's okay. That's a lot to think about. So let's take a quick break here, and then we'll do our social media sidebar. We're gonna come back, and man, I think you already know it. I mean, Juliana is very smart. She's gonna have amazing action item at the end of this, and don't go away. There's gonna be more, and I guarantee you. And we're also gonna have a special offer from Juliana.
Yep.
We are. So stay here for that. So Juliana, I think it's crazy. You're a bookkeeper, but I think you're very familiar with our presenting sponsor, which of course is Aereo. So Juliana is intimately aware, and her whole team, of Aereo, because of course Aereo is where we send our invoices. It is where we deliver all of our media, but it actually also connects to QuickBooks.
Yes.
Yes. And I think it took us a minute to really get it all honed in. But the beauty of Aereo is that when someone, because we've been using QuickBooks Online as our bookkeeping software forever. And once we started invoicing through Aereo, then we just had it sync. And so every time someone pays for their services, that their photos or whatever in Aereo, it pings QuickBooks and it makes an invoice right there and tracks the payment, right?
Yep. And then we're able to, track it down and know exactly where to find the information.
Right.
Yep.
And so I think Aereo for sure has made our lives easier, our relationship with JR Bookkeeping easier. So if you want to get in on this, and Aereo has so many more things that are amazing about it, and it's aryeo.com. And if you use the code Upmarket, you're going to get 15 free bonus listings. Can you believe? I know you know how you love bonus listings. I know Juliana does. Aereo.com. Well, Juliana, you said you're not a tax accountant, but you do a little bit of accounting in your business. So you know about home offices, right? I mean, that's a big thing that probably most real estate media people, if they're not a corporation, if they are a sole proprietor or whatever, that you can write off your home office, right? But the big thing about a home office is you got to know how much of your house is a home office. So if you pay your mortgage or you pay, $1,000 in rent or whatever, you got to know what percentage of that space is a home office.
Totally.
How do we do that? Well, I know a really good way that I think we could do it is you can use Second Floor app to make a floor plan of your house. And so that way you can segment off what your home office is and know exactly what percentage of the square footage of your home is your home office. And I think you can probably manipulate it after the fact to make sure that the IRS can see that you have a 20,000 square foot home office in your 21,000 square foot home. And I think right.
Do you know how many clients ask me about how do I figure out how much I should write off from my home?
Yes.
Because I am working from home and there's the time and the space that you need to write off. So
yes. Yeah. Well, so
that's
anyone
great.
can use, we're talking more to real estate media professionals, but anyone can use Second Floor app. So if you go to secondfloorapp.com/upmarket, you can get a free month of service. And within that free month of service, you can do floor plans to your heart's content. And Juliana, the other amazing thing about Second Floor app is it takes us just minutes to walk through a house using this app, scanning the house, and then instantly it brings back that floor plan. And that is something that you can upsell to your clients. So if you have these, entitled, bitchy realtors who just need their shit immediately, well, you can upcharge them and you can deliver that floor plan immediately.
That's so awesome.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Go to secondfloorapp.com/upmarket. Check it out. All right, social media sidebar. Come on, you know where we are. We're Upmarket Pod across all social media. And look, you're listening to this, you're watching this on YouTube. You better be watching this on YouTube because my shoes match Juliana's hair. So, and everyone knows, well, most people know what color my shoes usually are. So check out the YouTube feed for that. So we are Upmarket Pod on YouTube as well. Upmarket.media is, of course, where you can find our flagship account where you can see all the amazing videos and pictures of houses. And then but anyway, wherever you're listening, I lost my train of thought is you got to, subscribe, rate 5 stars, leave a review. We love all that stuff. And if there's other Instagram accounts I like to follow, they're usually bookkeeping related. So, Juliana, you do have an Instagram, right?
Of course.
JR Bookkeeping? Oh,
it's JR Bookkeeping Services.
Oh, okay.
So JR Bookkeeping Services. I know I should have shortened it, but you will find if you just search JR Bookkeeping.
Yes, and everyone will. Everyone's going to, smash that follow button for the
and
bookkeeping.
And you mentioned the red color shoes and my red color hair. So our logo is red. So you'll be able to find it easily.
Your phone case is red.
My car is red.
We're drinking red wine.
Yes.
This is it's really a lot of synergy. Real quickly, what are you finding Instagram driving bookkeeping business for you?
It is. I think, we try to make it very, very easy and not as afraid to reach out to us, right? We're really all about community, and we're also really all about making sure that we take that weight off from you, right? And invite you to just give us a try and give us a chance to show you how different your life could be. with our bookkeeping services. So.
Yeah, well, and I think I do want to highlight, Juliana, really quickly that I know one of the things about your business and kind of how we've gotten to know you is that you are really active in the community and in trying to help underserved people, whether it's gender or race or you are there at the forefront of making sure that it's not just like, rich people who are able to use these services. And I know that's been, and I know you don't you do like some online seminars and stuff for people in Spanish even? So,
I do a ton of stuff. First and foremost, the gift that I have of being bilingual, right?
Yes.
Being born and raised in Mexico, and speaking 2 languages, obviously that's, a great advantage to both of our audience or like both of our clients, right?
Yes.
That I can explain things in their own language. That was definitely, again, a plus. But most importantly, I mean, small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy.
Right.
And not all small businesses can afford, a professional bookkeeper right off the bat. And that is where resources come really key and really, they're so important. So, local resources that provide free consulting services. I collaborate with several organizations. Can I mention?
Yeah, of course.
Like Women Economic Ventures. Actually, matter of fact, that's how I met you guys.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, through Women Economic Ventures, who ensures that, they empower women and men.
Yes.
Right,
yes.
to start, grow, and maintain their businesses. And then there's SCORE, right? Like a mentoring, an affiliate of the SBA, offering free mentoring services as well as workshops. And that is where I hold a monthly QuickBooks webinar free of cost to anyone that wants to attend. It's usually on the second Tuesday of every month. However, you can find it on our website.
Okay. Oh, what is your website?
JRBookkeepingServices.com.
All right. Go check it out because I think any of our audience could also watch that webinar.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
Yes. And you can watch the recordings. They always get recorded and you can watch. I mean, I go anywhere from how to, the basics of bookkeeping to, the features within QuickBooks and how you can utilize it to your advantage. I also want to mention another resource.
Okay.
The Small Business Development Centers, which is housed by the EDC here in Ventura County and Santa Barbara counties. But the SBDC, Small Business Development Centers, are all around the nation. So wherever you're looking at, look for an SBDC because as a member of that, I am an advisor who provides free consulting and technical assistance to small business owners. So that is a way
How
that
do
you
have
can
time
get
to run your business?
Well, that's where my team comes in. Right? So my team, I have an awesome team, as you know.
Juliana is the master of scaling.
And then I also utilize, our resources here of like the Chambers of Commerce.
Sure.
I'm a member of 4 Chambers of Commerce
there
locally.
You go. Oh, look at you. Yeah, look at you, master networker.
And sit on a few boards. So,
yeah, of course.
I mean, the list goes on, but it's not about that. It's really about putting resources to the fingertips of our clients so that they can really scale their business.
Right.
Again, just like I did in my business, right? I was I was a client for all of these resources at once.
Right.
Or at one point.
Yes.
And I still tap into them when I don't know what.
Right.
Well,
what and it's been nice. And I think as we've been working with you for, I don't know, 7 years now, it's like our business has certainly grown and we've seen your business grow in the same time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and again, community is one of our big, of our big values.
Yeah.
Or our main values. So, staying on top of taking care of our clients, but most importantly, our community.
Right.
Putting those resources at their fingertips, making them available. And if we can't do it, then at least letting them know about them.
Right. All right. Well, Juliana, thank you so much. So let's take another quick break. We're going to be back with more really good insights with Juliana, and we're going to end with those action items. Juliana Ramirez. Let's get to the second half of the show. But I did want to start off with, actually, we were just talking in the break, and you were and I was like kind of saying, your bookkeeping, it's online. You can really bookkeep for anybody, and you actually know real estate media well now because you've been working with us for so many years. So in fact, and that's not really the point of why I had you come in here, but actually any of our listeners could be potential clients for you, and you bring so much knowledge and so much even knowledge about how our individual businesses work. And so, like, can you take clients around the country?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I just cleared it with you before this, but would you happen to have a special offer for any of our listeners?
Yes, I have 2 offers.
Oh, 2 offers.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
So the first one is going to be a free consultation.
All right.
That means time with me.
Yeah.
1 hour with me.
I recommend
at any
it.
time, just to pick my brain or just to help you assess where you're at and what the next steps are. So again, talking about strategy or talking about a goal. Let's connect.
Yeah.
And for that, you can just go on our website and schedule a complimentary consultation.
JRBookkeepingServices.com.
Yes, JRBookkeepingServices.com.
Right.
And the second offer,
even
and
better,
I think this is a better offer, I think. No, I know this is a better offer. If you're ready to jump in, if you're like, yep, I need, bookkeeping services, there's no doubt about that. Then if you sign up today, not today, sorry.
Yes.
If you sign up by telling us that you listened at at this
Upmarket
podcast,
Pod,
mention Upmarket.
She doesn't know the name of the podcast, but that's all right.
No. Just mention Upmarket.
Yeah.
And we will give you 1 free month of services.
Ooh. Going with the second floor app style thing. Nice. And I recommend that. And then also, and I don't know, I heard from someone at PMRE that they skipped the social media sidebar. Come on, people. There's good stuff in there. But we did talk about that in that segment, in case you did skip over it, of there's actually a lot of free resources available. And Juliana talked about one of the ones where she's giving webinars that are free to anybody, but then, other services that are going to be in your communities that can help with financial matters and bookkeeping and all those kind of things. So where do we go from here in terms of talking about bookkeeping and how it can help our businesses? I mean, there's also just the fact that you need to be compliant, right? And so like if your books are a mess, how can you be compliant?
Yeah. So first and foremost, let's make an assessment, right? Where are you at?
Right.
No questions asked. Not need to feel ashamed about it. If you're a business owner, that means you're busy. You're doing what you love to do, what you know you can do best, and what you love to do.
What we can tolerate doing for money. Yes.
Let's not discuss the details of that, but
right. In theoretical.
But
yes.
Again, you were given the talent, and you're using that talent to give service to others, right? That's really the bottom line.
Right.
And because you're busy doing that, then you may not have time for bookkeeping, and maybe you got behind, or you are not thinking about it because, again, you're not an accountant.
Yeah.
That's why people like me exist.
Yes.
However, what I would say is let's make an assessment. I would say make an assessment. As a matter of fact, here's another free another plus or a bonus. I have an assessment worksheet that I can provide, free of cost.
Right.
So that you can look at what is in that assessment. That means where are your books, and then from there create an action plan. Do you do it yourself with some assistance, some professional assistance, or do you hire somebody that can do it for you? Right. So an assessment. Then either hire the help or do it yourself with some assistance.
Right.
And then make sure that you have a system in place, like maybe a schedule where I'm going to be working on my books on either weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, whatever works for you. And then kind of like go from there. So.
Right. Well, I almost think about it I remember being hesitant because it seems like it's expensive, right? And you're just like, no, who wants to pay for bookkeeping? No one even wants to think about that stuff, much less pay for it. But I kind of think it relates to what people in our industry talk about with our clients because I know that there's a certain segment of clients who feel like they can produce very similar results to us. And, they might be into photography and they're going to go and photograph the house and make a video and whatever. And part of our pitch to agents is like, sure, you can do some of this stuff yourself and maybe you're great at it, but it's like, is that the best use of your time? Is that going to make you more money? Sure, it might save you some money, but you're also going to spend probably 5 times longer doing it than we will. And the results are probably not going to be as good. But more importantly, if you're a realtor, say, and you just spent 5 hours doing that, that's 5 hours you didn't spend trying to get a new lead for a listing, which is going to make you $20,000.
Yep.
Instead, you saved $500 or you saved whatever. And so I think it can be kind of the same thing for our, for real estate media owners, is like the more time you spend thinking about your books and doing your books is time that you can't spend growing your business, or time that you can't spend out shooting. I mean, if that's what it comes down to.
Totally. I mean, that's our approach too. We always say the same thing too, where we know that your time is better spent doing, again, what you do best.
Right.
And then let the experts, in this case, the accounting, done by accounting professionals.
Right.
And that's definitely the approach we take.
Right. Are you your own bookkeeper for JR Bookkeeping?
As a matter of fact, I don't. We just hired our bookkeeper who takes care of our books. Shout out to her.
Are you serious? Really?
Yes, I am.
Well, do you think there's value in actually outside of there's value in having an outside set of eyes on your books, even when you are as ingrained in bookkeeping as you are?
Totally. I mentioned SBDC, and I have a business advisor through SBDC.
So the small business,
small business development center, which in Ventura and Santa Barbara counties is housed by the Economic Development Collaborative, or EDC for short. But I mean, I have a business advisor who looks at my financials, right, at least once a year, so that he can tell me, hey, things are looking good, or what are you thinking? Are you, you need to up your prices, or you're spending too much on this or that? I think
he just told you that because you just raised their prices.
No, actually, that's like an annual.
Yeah, new year, new prices. I get it. Yeah.
But so that's one thing. Then the second is, again, what is the best use of your time?
Right.
For me, it is meeting with clients like you to go over your financials. Right. It is not doing my own bookkeeping. Right. So this is where, somebody that, that can do that better than I can. You're right. In the sense of making sure that I am doing what I know I can do best. And I have a business coach too, who helps me with understanding what is my top triangle, meaning what's at the top of my priorities. Like where is my time and expertise and experience best spent at. So that
that's true. That's true for any business, right?
For any business. Yeah. And so, so that's why we do have our own bookkeeper, just like we have our own marketing, company who does our marketing. I don't do our own marketing.
Oh, wow. Jeez. You're high. Wow. I didn't realize, I didn't realize. Well, I never see your marketing. I'm already a client. Yeah. That's money wasted if you're marketing to me. Well, what other, are there any other numbers that come to mind that we should be looking at in our books?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, first and foremost, know your balance sheet. Right. Know what you want to, make sure that they're accurate, that your financial position is true, right? That whatever you've invested in your business, it reflects that on the books. Whatever you've taken out from your business also is reflected. And then on your balance sheet, just make sure that you have accounted for everything. Because those are the numbers that are going to drive your growth. They're going to drive your decisions. They're going to drive how you do things and how you price your products, your services, and how you charge your clients too. Right.
Well, I think we get caught up because I know the one financial report that I like looking at in QuickBooks, the one that I constantly go to, is gross sales. Like I want to see sales broken down by, how many photo shoots do we do? How many video shoots? And I just want to see that number. And that's, and I think for better, for worse, but probably actually for worse, that's the number that I get focused on of like, if we sell more, we're going to make more. And that's not always true. But for me, that is a helpful barometer of where the market is going. Are we getting more clients? Are they spending more? Because there are those like, hey, what's your average invoice? And, as that gets higher and higher, I mean, that's an indication to us that we're selling more packages, which we want to sell rather than just the photo shoots or whatever.
Yeah. So that, that report that you mentioned, by the way, it's, the product of, by the sales by product summary.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because that's where you can see which one is your number one seller.
That's my favorite QuickBooks report. Yes.
And then you know, what I would say in addition to that is, what is the cost of that product?
Right. And that's not shown on that report.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
But if if set up correctly, we could look at that cost of goods sold.
Well, but how do we figure that out? I mean, from a bookkeeping perspective, right? Because our costs are there's like, how do we figure out, like, because for us, where we have employees, and I know in a lot of other states, it's easier to have independent contractors. So they say, oh, you do a photo shoot, I'm going to pay you $75 or whatever. And that's it. But for us, it's hourly cost. And so we kind of know how much each product, takes to, how much time it takes. And then there's our administrative costs and our, there's all these different costs that go in. So it's really hard for me to think about how much it actually costs per, each product that we sell. And we can kind of, Mark and I were just doing that this afternoon as we've been talking about revamping our video products and saying, oh, well, these editors cost this much, our current editors cost this much. And then, and I know it takes about 2 hours of our labor of our employees to do this. So it's, it ends up costing us XYZ for that. But it's kind of a ballpark thing. And how do we do that consistently well, thoroughly is not the word, but how do we know they're right? How do we know those numbers are right?
More efficiently.
Yeah.
So the very first thing is understanding the difference between your cost of goods sold, which is the direct cost of doing services, versus your fixed cost, which is those costs or those expenses that you have, no matter how much sales you have.
Right. Like the studio.
Like the studio, exactly. Yeah. So that's why on the profit and loss, they're shown in a separate line item. You'll see that cost of goods sold in the middle, right, section, right below the gross revenue,
right,
so that you can see what that cost is,
right,
and then obviously your fixed expenses,
right.
Now, of course, you need to be able to itemize what goes into a product, right. So, like you mentioned, your labor and any particular cost that you need in order for you to produce, that one. That one product that you're selling. So it's listing that out, right? Putting a number, right? So again, you mentioned, the cost of your subcontractor or the cost of your employees, right? So really being meticulous about those numbers so that you can figure out that cost. So I would say, like, a good exercise is taking inventory of what takes, what is taking, what is the actual cost of each of those products.
Right. And some of it has to be an average, right? Because
some of it is going to be an average.
We have employees, so we have to reimburse mileage. So if it's a shoot in Ventura and it's only 2 miles, it's different than if it's in Thousand Oaks and it's a 40-mile round trip.
Right.
So those costs, I think you just kind of have to probably just hit an average of, like, this is what I pay in mileage reimbursements, and then disperse that for, like, how many shoots you do.
It can, or you can also, take it a step further and use a tool within QuickBooks or within your accounting system that it's called, like, project profitability.
Okay.
And so within QuickBooks, you can use, like, the projects feature where you can itemize all of those costs that are related to that particular customer. Then you can, like, for instance, you mentioned mileage.
Yeah.
When that mileage is reimbursed to your employee, you can assign that mileage cost to that particular job or that particular customer. Right?
That's hard because, they're doing so many shoots every pay period. And, like, I think that's not probably feasible. But however, like, in our business, as we kind of have the revenue from, our realtors, but then we have revenue from this podcast, and then from, the studio, and, our course, and, all that stuff. And so we want to make sure that we know what we're doing in that space. And so it's kind of 2 different buckets.
Yep.
And within QuickBooks, I think it becomes it's not a different class, it's a different project.
It's actually a class.
Oh,
yes, that's another feature.
Yeah.
And again, that's what you want in your bookkeeper, being able to utilize what's already available within your software that can help you with with getting those numbers. So in your case, it's, like the studio, right?
Yes.
There should be there is a class for the studio, and there's a class for, for the other
For the
stuff.
upmarket, yeah.
So that then we can see what percentage of your revenue is from the studio versus what percentage is from everything else.
Right.
And then if you were to break your costs from that in that same manner, like using that percentage, that will give you an idea of where you're at. With that cost.
And then when you do that, though, you really want to make sure that you're careful when you're uploading your receipts, and when you're doing that, you have to delineate this is for the studio, this is for, and so you're classifying the revenue and you're classifying the expenditures, by class. So it can get a little hairy, and I'm not always the best at doing that. I mean, let's just be honest.
No, but again, it's number one, getting to know your business. So we like how long we've been in business for a while, so we're familiar with what you're doing.
Yes.
Right. And then also, this is where the check-ins go in, right? So that you don't have to do it, but this is where you can have the support from someone that can do it for you.
Yes. Okay. Well, and so Juliana, I think it all comes down to ultimately every year, and we're coming into that season right now, it gets to be tax season. And I know that we always used to just do our own taxes, or not even do our own taxes. We were doing our own bookkeeping. And so then that last month before tax, oh my God, we got to reconcile everything. We got to do this, we got to do that. And now it's easy. You're kind of honest, like a month ago, get these receipts in, do that. And then it's like done, and it just gets sent to the accountant. But what is the interplay between the bookkeeping and then tax accounting? And how does, I guess, that make our lives easier in this kind of season?
Yeah. So one of the things that I love is that, because, like I mentioned, the fact that we're accountants too, or we can play that role.
And most bookkeepers are not accountants, or are
not. Most bookkeepers are not going to be accountants. And what I mean by that is that they understand enough, or they know not enough. I'm sorry. They understand a lot about what are expenses and what are how to code things, right, and how to put them in. But when they look at financial statements, they may not know when something's off. So they may need more assistance of how to fix it, or how to really make it right. And so what we do is make sure that the financials are accurate. That means that you can verify each number, with an outside source. An example of that could be your credit card statement. If the credit card balance says it's one amount, we should be able to go to the statement and make sure that amount matches. That's it could be as simple as that. But there may be lingering transactions from the past that you don't know what to do with. And some bookkeepers may not know how to do with that, especially if you inherited them from another bookkeeper or from a previous, or even just the business owner.
No, I think we just cleared up something from like 2022.
So you issue a check, and then it never gets cashed, and then you don't know what to do with it, right? And so it's like most bookkeepers will know that it needs to be avoided, but if the tax is already filed, how do you avoid something that already was reported on your taxes? So it's like making sure that's the piece that I mean, that accountants, look at financials so they're accurate. So in our case, we look at that, and then we are able to send them off to the tax accountant. Obviously, you have already made the introduction, and you tell us, go ahead and send them over. We make ourselves available to speak to the tax accountant. And then they will let us know, hey, we need more information. If they have questions, they ask us about it.
Well, we just give you all access to our QuickBooks. So, our CPA and you are all up in our business in the QuickBooks.
And in that case, we just let them know, hey, the books are ready. And then they go into the books, and then they pull what they need, from there. And so that's one of the things you want to do. You want to be able to have, again, your books finalized, reconciled, ready to go. So that then your tax accountant, either you send them off or you just give them access to your books. Right. And so that's one of the things that you want to do, now. Now, if you're behind and if you didn't, you don't have your books. This is there's two things that I recommend to clients.
Okay.
One is,
well, your client shouldn't be behind, but
no, I said to clients or prospective clients.
There you go. Yeah.
It's if you are, if it's already 4 weeks, I mean, we're right around the corner. March 15th is right around the corner.
Who knows when people listen to this, but yeah.
Well,
Yes.
if you're very close to the tax deadline, it is best that you file an extension. Of course, check with your tax accountant. They'll know your situation. They know if you need to perhaps make estimated payments just so that you don't incur any, penalties.
Right.
So make sure that you check in with them, and have them let you know, hey, yes, let's make a payment, even if it's not the full amount or even if it's, over the amount that you're eventually going to need to pay, just so that you can avoid any type of penalty. So an extension grants you additional time to be able to file your taxes,
Right.
when they're ready. And again, if you're behind, make sure that you file an extension, right?
Yes.
But if you're once you buy that time, then make sure that you catch up.
Right.
And like I said, make that assessment so that then you can identify what needs to be done, hire some help, or do it yourself with some help.
Right.
So,
well, is there a magic number on, you already laughed.
I'm afraid of this question.
No. But is there a magic number of revenue that someone is bringing in a business where they really 100% need to have help with bookkeeping and or tax filing? Right? Because I know a lot of us, especially when we're getting started, we're doing that ourselves because we're not making that much money. We're coming into it. And, we're used to just doing we were in college and we just did our personal taxes and it was like, we just filed I don't even remember what it is, the easy form, but, is it, are you making $30,000 a year, $100,000, $200,000? What is it?
Yeah.
Is there
there's certainly certain thresholds, and I'm not a tax accountant, so this is where you would need to find yourself a tax accountant.
Blah, blah, blah. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Most importantly that. But you have to understand that every person's situation may be different. So if you're, like a solopreneur, if you're the only one bringing in the business, what does that mean? And if you were to multiply that by at least 15 to 25%, what would that be? That is the tax that you're going to be liable for, mainly because as a sole proprietor, right, you have to pay, there's self-employment tax, right? And so no matter what that amount is, I mean, the IRS requires, if you get paid $600 or more, that there's a 1099 and that you report that.
Yeah.
Not only that, but whoever paid you that money is going to need to report it. Yeah. So there needs to be check and balances.
Right.
So again, I wish I could tell you, yes, this is the number.
Yeah. But I guess, but almost more of like, how much money do you have to be making where then it becomes worth it? Because we like I wouldn't say you're expensive. I wouldn't say you're cheap though. And I certainly know that we benefit from your services and of course from our accountant. But then, you're looking at, we're spending between, I don't know, like $15,000 and $20,000 a year on these kind of financial services. And I think it's well worth it. But like, at what point can I justify that in my business? Right.
I would say anywhere between $100,000 to $150,000. It's where you definitely have to, have some type of, of that expense.
Thank you. You came up with the magic number.
I mean, because like you said, you need to be able, it needs to make sense,
right?
And you need to be able to justify, but at the very least, hire somebody for the setup,
right?
Okay? For the setup,
right? For
some type of routine, right? To show you the basics,
right?
Right?
Get a consultation, basically.
Get a consultation. And then at the very least do that, right? It's not going to be an arm and a leg. It could be, a few $100 for the year, but it's so worth it. It's just like the amount that you spent on your branding.
Yeah. One of the things that we do talk about in how, as someone, if you're on the beginning of your scaling journey, is in every single possible thing that you can think of in your business, you want to start where you want to end up. And so the more that you can put these kind of systems in place when you don't really need them, when you're just on the cusp of needing them, but if you can do it then, it's so much easier to do it then than if you're like 2 years behind on your books, after you've been making $200,000 a year. I mean, then that's a nightmare.
Yeah. And I often get asked, when should you, when should you acquire QuickBooks, or when should you, start an accounting? I always say it's like the minute that you have your first expense, it's going to make your life easier.
Oh, yeah. No, I think we've been using QuickBooks forever. We were using Wave before that, but there's so many like low cost or free like things if you're not doing that much business, but at least you can have some semblance of organizing your invoices and your the expenses and everything else.
Yeah. And at the very least, have a place where all that information is there, is it's saved, right?
Yes.
Either it be electronic, make an electronic folder that has, that has all that information so that if you need it, you can grab it easily or share it with somebody easily. If it's physical, then make sure that it's in a folder that you can just grab and hand it to somebody. I mean, at the end of the day, this is what you're working for.
Right.
And you want to make sure that you're prepared if you ever need it. So I know that, as an accounting professional, I have to, ensure that our clients understand that, accounting is a pillar for your business.
Yeah.
And even if you spend very little, either you're going to do it yourself or you're going to hire somebody to do it. But it's a good investment. It's going to get you a long way. It's going to contribute towards your bottom line, and it's going to contribute towards your strategic goals. So definitely, I'm always going to advocate for bookkeeping and accounting, not for not to get hired, right? But just because that is what our businesses need.
Yeah, you believe in what you're doing, and you believe in its utility for the average person, for the average business owner. So I think that's that's amazing. And I think all of those things to do. You absolutely have to take action to do those. So which means it is time for action items.
Yes.
Our action items today are sponsored by Pixel CRM, the only CRM that is made by a real estate photographer for real estate photographers and media professionals. It's an amazing tool, fully fleshed out. You can do so many things with Pixel CRM. I urge you to check it out. It's Pixel CRM. That's PIXL. CRM.com. And if you add right after that.com, if you add a little /Upmarket, you're going to be able to get a free month of service to check it out. So check out pixelcrm.com/upmarket. All right, Juliana, the honored guest. I would love it if you could go first. So do you have an action item, one simple thing a real estate media professional can do to help grow or make their business more efficient?
So once again, acquire your business accounting software if you don't already have it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's easy.
That's really easy.
Yeah, that's okay. Oh, she's giving me the wink. Is that good? Of course it's good. But I think there are people who don't. So yes, probably most of our listeners are using QuickBooks or Wave or something.
Yeah.
But
so for those that are already using, QuickBooks, then get an assessment. Where are you at?
Right.
So get an
at
assessment of where are you at.
JRBookkeepingServices.com. You can get your free assessment. And there it is. I mean, and that's the thing is, and I know Juliana is not, she's not, there's no pressure from her. She truly of people I know, absolutely heart in the right place, wants to help people. So I know any of our listeners, she will absolutely want to help you and get that assessment done. And that would be, and there we go. That is my action item. Because I was going to say hire a bookkeeper, but actually just get the stinking assessment, because then you can understand where you are. And that is an action item, right? Hiring a bookkeeper is a bigger thing. It's a bigger decision, but getting an assessment, that is easy. I mean, it might be emotionally hard. I know sometimes there is a lot of emotion around numbers sometimes, right? It's so dry, but then it's like...
Well, it is your relationship with money, right?
Yeah.
And numbers are
I have a love affair.
What do they say? It's like, it's not everything, but oh my goodness, how does it solve?
Yes, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's a lot. And I think there's so much tied up into it. And I know... especially when things are, it's fun to look at the numbers when they're good, but when they're not as good, it's hard. It is really hard.
But I gotta say, like, the pandemic taught us a lot about, the importance of being prepared for the unknown or for the unprepared. Right. And that's another,
there we go.
Yep.
Okay, we have to do this right at the end. But when the pandemic hit, we had already been working with you guys for like 2 or 3 years,
Yep.
and our books were in order. So when it was time to apply for the for the PPP loans, for everything else, and also there were like grants being given out and stuff. It's like we were boom. It was like, oh, give us this, give us that. Okay, great. It was just a download.
It was so ready.
It was so ready, so easy. That was a lifesaver in those moments.
And this is what we're seeing, right? Like I mentioned, as an advisor, we got to see the clients or the businesses that took advantage were because they were ready, they were prepared, because their financials were handy.
Right.
For those that couldn't take advantage of those resources, like the grants and stuff, it was mainly because their books were not in order. They didn't think they needed them, right? And even if it was, getting access to $1,000 when you had zero income coming in, any amount it's helpful.
Well, no, so, I mean, I don't remember what it was. I think we got like a $30,000 PPP loan, and it was just like, it was like.
It was significant for you to continue running your operation, and that's definitely what.
Well, not for us. It was for any real estate media professional. We actually didn't need the PPP loans because our businesses were booming that year. We were the one sector that was just like going bananas. Yeah. So but we still got it anyway.
Yeah. And for most businesses, that's what it was. And so again, make sure that you have your finances in order so you can focus on running your business.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Juliana, thank you so much. And I really appreciate it. I feel like whenever we have conversations about bookkeeping and stuff, it's not dry at all. You're like a fun person. I really appreciate you being on here. Hopefully our audience, I know our audience love that. So thank you. And thank you to Chelsea and Mark for not being here. And thank you to our sponsors. And thank you, of course, to our listeners. Hopefully you got as much out of that as I did. And we will be back with a lot more content soon. And there you go. Thanks, Juliana.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Upmarket is a production of Upmarket Studios. This episode was produced by Chelsea Froelich and edited by Bethany Diedrich. Thank you so much for listening, and we really hope you listen to the next one too. In the meantime, our wish for you is to not have to shoot any Friday night Twilight shoots. Thank you for everything.